there's purely man-made technology on one level, which would result in man-made anti-gravity technology with no help from anyone else, non-human intelligence. But actually, there's now a second question, which is the one we've been discussing, which is have we, mankind, through aerospace and defense companies, and at a very secret level, have they been trying to reverse engineer stuff that's crashed to Earth? So I don't know how that technology, if it exists, is controlled. The glib answer to that, I suppose, is it's not even that glib, actually. It's a serious answer, is that there are multiple levels of control for how information is contained, starting with deception, which is a good one. And the UFO phenomenon is so odd and multifaceted that you can hide a range of stuff behind it. And as we know from archive testimony and evidence already, the CIA admitted, I think it was in the 1990s, or it may have been more recently, that it had used the UFO smokescreen to cover up some of its real-world spy assets, its spy programs, like the U-2 spy plane and the A-12 spy plane in the 1950s and 60s. So ufology provides a very useful cover behind which you can hide real-world stuff. So that's one form of control. And then, of course, there are physical aspects of control. Rings of security around particular programs, and those exist and are very real. People often say to me, well, you can't hide a secret for 80 years. If you take the Roswell crash as a kind of baseline for the emergence of the phenomenon, the UFO phenomenon in the modern era, you can't hide a program like that for 80 years. Well, actually, you can. And I mean, I've been on the edges of technology, particularly in the 80s and 90s, when my colleagues and I were looking at stealth and hypersonics, which was being developed in secret. Those programs contained thousands of people, all of whom were working in compartmented sectors to ensure that the whole secret never got out. People building the stealth fighter, if they were working on its electronics or its undercarriage, they would have had no clue what the aircraft was they were actually building it for. Or if they did have a clue, there was nothing they could go on to prove what it was one way or the other. That secret held for a very long time. It held for over a decade, sort of 12 years. And that was for an itty bitty, now as we look at it, stealth program. I mean, very significant at the time. But, with hindsight, it was just a man-made aircraft. So what would you do with something that was truly exotic? I mean, that secret would hold. So to wrap it up, there are many levels of control, and they're all pretty effective. I mean, actually, the one that is probably most effective is ridicule, because these days there is such a thin line, a blurred line, between what is real and what is fake.